I'm really not trying to scare you. I've seen the most unfortunate cases of families that have picked up and moved here to Northern Michigan and then realized it was a huge mistake. It was a terrible move for them because now they got to pick up everything they brought here and they got to move again to another home. Because there are some things you definitely need to be aware of before you move to Northern Michigan. So in this video, I'm going to make sure that you know everything you need to know to make sure that Northern Michigan is a fit for you. Because for most people, it's not. Hey, I'm TJ, a Michigan real estate agent, and my channel is all about informing you about everything you need to know about moving to Northern Michigan. Subscribe below for more videos, and if you're thinking about moving here, please reach out, but not before finishing this video. Because I want to jump into the first reason why you should not move to Northern Michigan. The winters are harsh. So what are winters like in Northern Michigan? Let me tell you, any towns around here are going to get anywhere probably from 120 inches to 180 inches of snow. Last winter was the worst winter we've seen in 10 years. We had snow all the way through April. Sometimes the snow sticks around till May. Since we live so close to water, which is awesome in the summer, in the winter, we get lake effect snow coming across from Wisconsin, across Lake Michigan, and then it just pounds us here in Northern Michigan. Sometimes we have an electric heater going in our room. We have the stove going. We have a wood stove going, your furnace. I mean, it can get below -10 degrees sometimes here in Northern Michigan. You absolutely have to be prepared for the winters if you're thinking about moving to Northern Michigan. Most folks here embrace the lifestyle of harsher winters. So cool things to do outside in the winter. We have all the lakes around us for ice fishing. There's snowmobile trails to the south, to the east. We have downhill skiing at multiple resorts on the west side of Traverse City, all the way up to the northeast corner of Traverse City. Lots of people like cross-country skiing trails, sledding, tubing down the ski hills that here as well. So there's a lot of outdoor cool activities for families and individuals to enjoy here in Northern Michigan in the winter. But if all of that sounds like an absolute nightmare to you, then Northern Michigan is not the place for you. The number 2 reason why you should not move to Northern Michigan is the limited public transit. If you're thinking about having a lifestyle with no car at all, then forget about Northern Michigan. There are a few public transit options, but really most of the locals don't rely on them at all. You're definitely going to have a car, and you're going to have it ready for all seasons, maybe even 2 or 3 sets of tires, because you need to be able to get to the grocery store, shopping, all the things, and maybe you need to be able to get through some pretty hard weather to get to work some days. If you're looking for big cities where public transit can help you get to work and everywhere you need to go, then Northern Michigan is not the place for you. The third reason you should not move to Northern Michigan is the terrible internet. So a lot of places that you go in Northern Michigan, you get out to the peninsulas and things like that. I was just using Siri this week to try to find a lighthouse, and it did not work. There's a lot of places that have limited internet connections, and as a realtor, I help a lot of people move here that work from home. So that becomes a very important piece and sometimes can be very limiting in where they can find a home to work from. Now, if you are thinking of moving here and you need great internet, all the cable companies up here, we have new fiber cable going in the ground on a weekly basis. So there is good high-speed internet. The closer you get to Traverse City, the more options you have. I live out in the boonies, and actually 1 year ago, we finally got Spectrum Internet high-speed cable cooked to our house. So they are doing a good job trying to infiltrate those more rural areas of Northern Michigan. The number 4 reason, and maybe the biggest reason of all not to move to Northern Michigan, is this is a huge tourist trap. So a lot of towns around here outside of Traverse City have populations from 400 to 800 year-round residents. That population can swell to 20, 30,000 people in those small towns in the summertime. So if you're a local, it becomes a big pain sometimes to try to get around from place to place. But a lot of the economy here and a lot of people's income is based on tourism. In fact, a lot of the folks around here make most of their money in that 12 to 14 weeks of summer. So what that means, we have all these people that flock to Northern Michigan. It just has a total different vibe than you get the rest of the year. Some of the locals find it super annoying, and they will avoid any places where all the tourists are flocking to in the summer months. It also leaves a lot of towns feeling abandoned and really small outside of the summer months, because a lot of the towns are set up just for those few weeks of summer where they can flourish and then shut down from there. With that being said, a lot of us love those slower months up here because it's still beautiful. You have the beautiful fall weather going into winter, but in the summertime, it has its perks too, right? Because you get to meet all these people and you get to really, really understand why Northern Michigan's so special, because so many people come here to enjoy it and we get to live here. So this might be a huge red flag to some people, but a lot of us around here find it pretty charming because it is such a popular place in the summertime. So just make sure you understand the nature of summers here in Northern Michigan before you make a move here. The number 5 reason not to move here is there is no clubbing. Really, there's almost no nightlife here in northern Michigan. There's a few bars and places that stay open till midnight or so with maybe some live music and dancing. I know of just 2 in this whole northern Michigan area. And a lot of the bars shut down at 9 or 10 o'clock ever since COVID happened. So if nightlife is a huge part of what you're looking for, northern Michigan is not the place for you. Number 6 reason not to move to northern Michigan is the rural isolation. Now, northern Michigan is home to Traverse City, which might lead you to believe that Traverse City is a huge city, but really, it's not. The northern Michigan area here is not a huge metropolitan area by any means. There's a small downtown area in Traverse City that does have a lot to offer, and it's growing every year. But drive a few minutes in any direction, and it does start feeling a lot more sparse. You're gonna have a lot of properties on a lot of acreage, so it starts to feel really spread out. A lot of people really enjoy the homestead lifestyle up here, so if that's something that you're looking for, then this could be the place for you. And some people that look to move to the area like to be closer to the downtown area where it's more developed, or on the water where there's a lot more properties stacked side by side. So that's a lot of the areas here in northern Michigan. So I just want you to understand there's going to be a dichotomy between most of those parcels that are more spread out and rural, and then those really sought after lakefront and downtown areas. If you're looking for those really densely populated, huge neighborhoods like you would see in a Chicago or something like that, where there's multiple grocery stores, multiple gyms to go to, then northern Michigan's not the place that you want to be. That being said, the population staying a little bit smaller leads to a really, really tight-knit community feel in a lot of the areas up here. So really just understand what you're getting yourself into when you're moving here into northern Michigan. The 7th reason not to move here is that driving can be a nightmare. I already talked about the snow, and there's a lot of preparation needed in order to know how to drive in snow. If you wait till November to get your tires changed to your snow tires here in northern Michigan, you're not going to be able to get into a place for another month. People get prepared ahead of time because once that first snow hits the road, it is slick. The roads are hot, the snow hits, it turns into ice, and you can slide all over the place. There's really tough accidents, people going into ditches, people flipping cars, people going through intersections. So really, you need to be ultimately prepared with your vehicle, preferably 4-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. Have your snow tires, or at least an all-season tire, so that you'll be prepared for those northern Michigan roads. And if you don't do this, you're gonna be stuck in one of those spots where you're getting your car towed out of the ditch at midnight on your way home from work because you just didn't do everything you needed to get that car ready. Northern Michigan is also home to tons of wildlife, which means you're gonna be out and there are gonna be deer and critters and raccoons crossing the road at any time. Bears too. And if you've ever hit a deer on the road before, it's a pretty serious thing. So you need to be attentive at all times whenever you're driving here in northern Michigan. If you're not prepared for all the things that could happen when you're driving here in northern Michigan, then this might not be the place for you. But if you are prepared, just have that kit in the back of your car with an extra blanket, jumper cables, maybe something to blow up your tires if you get a flat, then northern Michigan really is a beautiful place to drive around and explore. You just got to have all those things in ready so that you can go out and feel safe on the roads. Personally, in my lifetime, I've had maybe 4 or 5 incidents on the road. Yeah, I've slid into a few ditches. Usually you can get out pretty quickly. I have had a few deer hit me. I didn't hit them. Every once in a while, you do have a smaller animal run out in the road, and unfortunately, that's what we call roadkill here in northern Michigan. So just be aware of all those things before moving here. The number 8 reason to not move to northern Michigan is the lack of shopping. Shopaholics beware. This is not going to be one of your big cities where you have all those fancy stores and lots of options to choose from everywhere you look. I know a lot of people have moved to Amazon, but there's those that still like to go to those storefronts and actually see those clothes and try them on in person. If that's what you're looking for, then northern Michigan is not the place for you. If you're craving that big box shopping, then you're probably going to have to go down to Ann Arbor, over to the Detroit area, or even head to Chicago to tickle that itch for those big box shopping. And that's a big commitment to make. The reality of it is, in each town around here, it has its own little charm. There's little boutiques that you can go in and find some really cool stuff, clothing-wise, jewelry, and stuff like that. But the options are pretty limited. That being said, if you are looking for a little bit of high end. We do have some great men's stores here with custom suits, custom shirts, and then we have some wonderful women's boutiques as well. The number 9 reason not to move here is the slow emergency response. We do have fire departments around, but they're just not as close by as they are in larger cities. And really, some areas, they depend on volunteer response teams. So if you have an emergency and you're hoping that a fire department's gonna be at your front door within 1 to 2 minutes, that's probably not going to be the reality here in Northern Michigan. There are great people in all of our EMT and fire departments, and each city pretty much has one. Just the response time's a little longer than what you might be used to in some of those larger cities. I know a lot of different members that are part of the different EMT and fire crews around Northern Michigan, and they are great people. That's what's one cool thing about our little close-knit communities. If you do have an emergency or something come up, chances are you're probably going to know somebody that's coming out to help you. The last reason not to move to Northern Michigan, and maybe the most important one, is the crazy expensive real estate. Over the last handful of years, real estate prices have literally doubled, if not more. The reason for this is really the demand for the lake life, or at least being by the lakes, that got driven way up during the pandemic. So people that used to be able to afford that beautiful lakefront property can't even come close to affording it today. So you know how I said this area is pretty rural? That being said, the most desirable areas like the lakefront property up here, you can't even probably get what you want for $1 million anymore. A lot of the lakefront properties that people are looking at now are between $1.5 to $4 million. This has really rattled a lot of us locals. A lot of people with modest incomes are sort of stuck because they just can't afford the more expensive properties anymore. With that being said, a lot of folks have enjoyed this appreciation over the last several years. And honestly, today, investors continue to invest here in Northern Michigan just because the trajectory that we're seeing as far as the appreciation and values over the next years to come is very, very strong. So even after all 10 of these reasons, you're still thinking about moving to Northern Michigan, give me a call. The truth is, I wasn't really trying to convince anyone not to move to Northern Michigan. I just wanted y'all to be aware that there are some things that could be a surprise. Any one of these things could really ruin your experience living here. But if you're like me and my family who's lived here for generations, we love living here and we can't imagine living anywhere else. The lake culture here and the laid-back lifestyle is just second to none if that's something that you're looking for in your life. So if you have any other questions, please comment below, reach out, because I really like the conversations that happen outside of these videos. Please subscribe if you haven't, leave a comment, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.